Chapter 5 of Tractate Yoma continues discussing the laws of a special temple service on the day of Yom Kippur. After the Kohen Gadol scoops the coals from the altar and puts them on the fourth row of stones in the courtyard, he's brought a ladle and shovel, takes a cupped hand full of incense, which is placed into the ladle, depending on how much his hand's going to hold, and takes a shovel full of coals, the shovel in his right hand and the ladle in his left. The Gemara states that it says that they bring him a shovel, as the first time was the coal shovel, and here it's the incense shovel, which he scoops from to fill the ladle. It says sources and describes why this is necessary with the ladle and shovel, so he can carry things in once and properly. There are some verses discussed. It mentions a time one Kohen Gadol mid-service became impure, as somebody talked to him in a market and accidentally got spittle on him, so his brother took over, and some related points. The scooping of the incense, a service known as chafina, there's a debate if this needs to be done actually with your hands, or if that's just a measurement. We bring proofs both ways, but it's left unresolved. There are verses discussed, and the incense should not be overflowing in your hands, so there's debate in regards to incense bits that are stuck directly between your fingers. They're said to have a questionable status, and it says they should be burned after. To be safe, they arranged that fat Kohanim should do this service, as they have thicker fingers and incense wouldn't fall between. There are also a few unresolved points on this, like what if you scoop the incense from the side of your hand, and similar. There are some further unresolved questions. This is discussed further. There's also debate if the Kohen Gadol just died before he could bring the incense offering, if the new Kohen Gadol should use the original incense, or if he should scoop a new handful. This is debated from a few sources. We also say he refills his hands once he's inside the innermost part of the temple. There's further discussion. It debates if the blood of the bull is referenced as the bull in regards to this service, which is relevant if you consider the Kohen Gadol's bull to be a communal offering, but that's a debated point with many sources quoted. This is argued on further. There are also some additional sources quoted on this discussion. We eventually quote a point that proves the Kohen Gadol's bull offering is considered jointly owned by the other Kohanim also, even though the Kohen Gadol himself pays for it. New Mishnah. The Kohen Gadol, then carrying the incense, would walk through the heichal, the interior of the temple structure, until he reached the two curtains that separated the room from the innermost chamber of the temple, the Holy of Holies. The curtains were a cubit apart. Some say there was only one curtain, which is based off a verse. The Gemara says that the opinion that says that there were two curtains says the verse applies to the tabernacle, and the first temple had a cubit-wide wall in between, but by the second temple they were unsure if the wall had the sanctity of which chamber, so they just made it two curtains. There's a lot of different opinions as to how exactly the Kohen Gadol walked through the temple to reach this room, based on your opinion of the layout of the temple. If further debates the curtain as to the sanctity of which chamber it should hold, there are some verses quoted on this topic. There are also a few other verses quoted in regards to their punctuation. New Mishnah. The outer curtain was pinned to the south side of the sanctuary, and the inner courtyard was pinned to the north side. The Kohen Gadol walked through the corridor between the curtains until he reached the poles of the ark, where he put a shovel full of coal between them, and then the incense on top of the coals, so that way the whole room filled with smoke. He then walked backwards out the way he had came, and said a quick prayer in the outer chamber. Quick, so that way the Jewish people didn't get afraid. The Gemara debates which temple this is referring to based off the mention of the ark, which was only by the first temple, but it says it's referring to the second temple, and it's referring to the location of where the ark was. This for the discussion on the remaining points. It says in regards to not turning around when leaving the chamber, a person should similarly not turn his back when leaving his teacher, and there are some instances of this given. Similarly, at the end of your prayer of the Amidah, you should take 3 steps back and say Shalom. This is discussed. It says the instances of the brief prayer said by the Kohen Gadol after, like in regards to rain, which there are a few examples given, and he was very quick about it, as there was a tradition that all the Kohanim Gadolim that passed away during this service, it was during a misperformance of the incense service, and the Jewish people were concerned on his behalf. New Mishnah. After the ark was taken away, there was an ancient stone placed there from the time of the early prophets called Shasiya, or foundation, and the Kohen Gadol put the coals on it. He then took the bull's blood, which was being stirred so it didn't congeal. He then went back in and sprinkled some of the blood towards the ark cover, once above and 7 times below in a certain manner, counting as he sprinkled, saying 1 and 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, etc. He then left and put the bowl on the golden stand in the sanctuary. They brought him the he-goat, which he slaughtered, and received its blood in its bowl. He then went back in, repeated the sprinkling process, left, and put the bowl back on another golden stand. Some say there was just one stand and he switched the bowls. Some of the bowl blood was sprinkled on the curtain, with the same counting manner, although this time without aiming. Then he took the goat blood and also sprinkled the curtain. Then he poured the bull blood into the goat bowl and put this full bowl into the empty one. The Gemara notes that the opinion that the Ark was taken into exile in Babylonia seems to be implied by this wording, unlike the view that it was hidden away. The timing of this is discussed, and there's points on structure and history of aspects of the temple. There are some additional points. It describes the method of the sprinkling and some additional points in this. Some study actually counted saying 1 and 1, 2 and 1, 3 and 1, etc., but that's dependent on your locale. There's some additional discussion on these points. There are points on the different donation chests in the temple mentioned, and these are qualified further. There's some additional discussion about the different sacrifices and their blood sprinkling. It also goes through how the blood was sprinkled on the curtains, with one sage saying he went to Rome to see the displayed looted curtains to see if the blood was actually still on them. There are further points on this as to which blood from the animal they use, and there's debate if they actually mix the bloods together. It also debates if he actually stacked the bowls. Some say that it means he poured the liquid between the bowls to mix them. Others say that based on the source, it wasn't an issue of there being an interposition, and the bowls were actually stacked. There's debate if palm bast in the bowl acts as an interposition based off whether it's porous. We bring a source which says it's too thick and it creates an interposition for blood, but not by water. The Kohen Gadol then dabbed the mixed blood on the golden altar on the corners downward from the northeast to northwest, southwest, then southeast. This is discussed. Some say he put all the blood from bottom to the top, besides the corner in front of him, which he did from the top down. He then sprinkled it on top of the altar 7 times, and the rest of the blood was poured on the western base of the outer altar. The remainder of the blood of sacrifices from the outer altar were poured by its south side. The blood would mix, flow out, and was sold as fertilizer, and if misused, made you liable for me'ilah, which is impermissibly using consecrated objects for personal benefit. The Gemara discusses points on the sequence as to the way the Kohen Gadol would rotate around the altar and similar. These points are further qualified, and this goes on for a bit further. And there are also some additional verses discussed on this topic. New Mishnah. With all the listed sequences of the Yom Kippur service, they're invalidated if done out of order. If the blood spilled before he could finish their application, you must get new blood and start the applications again. And the same applies by all the sprinkling by all the locations. Others say he just picks up where he stopped. The Gemara discusses these points. There's qualification in regards to doing certain steps out of order, which are discussed further. There are a few additional points as to what to do with what mistakes made. We said a second animal is slaughtered for its blood if the blood spills, so you'd also need another adjoining Azazel goat too, along with its lottery. There's a bit of debate as to if you end up having multiple Azazel goats, which one you should use. Some say it's the first, some say it's the last. It's debated from the sources. And that's the end of chapter 5.